The town of Silent Hollow was shrouded in an unsettling stillness. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the echoes of the past lingered in every corner. It was as if the town itself was holding its breath, waiting for something, or perhaps someone, to break the silence that had settled over it like a heavy fog. The buildings stood decrepit and decaying, their empty windows like vacant eyes staring out into nothingness. These structures, once full of life and activity, now seemed to mourn their own demise. The streets were empty, save for the rustling of dead leaves stirred by the wind. The leaves danced in the air, a ghostly reminder of the life that once thrived here. An oppressive silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the occasional caw of a crow. The silence was almost tangible, pressing down on the town like an invisible weight. Looming over this desolate landscape was the Asylum, perched atop a windswept hill. It was a foreboding presence, casting long shadows over the town below. Its silhouette was stark against the stormy grey sky, a jagged reminder of the town's troubled past. The Asylum seemed to watch over the town, a silent sentinel of its dark history. The Asylum had once been a place of hope, a sanctuary for the mentally ill. It was a place where people came seeking solace and healing, a beacon of light in a world of darkness. But time and tragedy had twisted its purpose, transforming it into a place of unspeakable horror. The walls that once offered comfort now echoed with the cries of the tormented. Now the Asylum stood abandoned, its windows boarded up, its walls crumbling. It was a monument to the suffering that had taken place within its confines. It was a shell of its former self, haunted by the memories of the horrors that had transpired within its walls. The very air around it seemed to vibrate with the energy of the past. The townsfolk spoke of the Asylum in hushed tones, if they spoke of it at all. It was a subject best avoided, a dark stain on the town's history that no one wanted to acknowledge. It was a place of whispers and shadows, a place where the veil between this world and the next was thin. The boundary between reality and the supernatural seemed to blur, creating an atmosphere of perpetual unease. Silent Hollow itself was a town caught between worlds, a place where the past refused to let go. The name of the town was a fitting one, for silence was its most defining feature. The path leading to the Asylum was overgrown and seldom travelled. It was as if nature itself was trying to reclaim the land, to erase the scars left by human hands. In its prime, the Asylum had been a grand structure, a symbol of hope and progress. But now, it was a relic of a bygone era, a testament to the fragility of human endeavours. As night fell over Silent Hollow, the town seemed to come alive with the whispers of the past. The moon cast an eerie glow over the landscape, illuminating the shadows that danced in the corners of the town. Some say that on nights like these, you can see figures moving in the windows of the Asylum. Whether they are the spirits of the past or simply tricks of the light, no one can say for certain. The crows, ever watchful, seemed to be the only living creatures that dared to inhabit this forsaken place. Their cries echoed through the empty streets, a haunting soundtrack to the town's desolation. And so the Asylum remains, a silent witness to the passage of time. Shrouded in mist and mystery, it stands as a reminder of the shadows that linger in the forgotten corners of our world. Cranbrook Mental Hospital, as it was once known, first opened its doors in 1888. It was intended as a haven for the mentally ill, a place where they could receive compassionate care and treatment. The building was stately, with high ceilings, large windows and sprawling grounds. For a time, Cranbrook lived up to its noble aspirations. Patients found solace within its walls, their minds and bodies healing under the care of a dedicated staff. But this period of tranquility was not to last. As the decades passed, a darkness began to creep into Cranbrook. The asylum became severely underfunded and overcrowded. The staff, once so dedicated, became jaded and overworked. The asylum's focus shifted from treatment to containment. Then came Dr. Elias Thorne. A man of considerable intellect and questionable morals, Dr. Thorne was obsessed with unlocking the secrets of the human mind. He saw the asylum's patients not as people in need of care, but as subjects for his twisted experiments. Under Thorne's direction, Cranbrook descended into a nightmare. Dr. Thorne's experiments grew increasingly bizarre and cruel. His methods were not only unconventional but also deeply disturbing, pushing the boundaries of ethical medical practice. He subjected patients to electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and experimental drugs, all in the name of scientific advancement. These procedures were often performed without consent, leaving patients in a state of perpetual fear and agony. The screams of the tortured echoed through the halls of Cranbrook, a testament to the horrors that were unfolding within. The walls, once meant to protect, now served as silent witnesses to the unspeakable acts committed by Dr. Thorne. The staff, either too afraid or too indifferent to intervene, turned a blind eye to Thorne's atrocities. Some whispered among themselves, fearing the repercussions of speaking out, while others simply chose to ignore the suffering around them. Then, on a stormy night in 1957, the unspeakable happened. The air was thick with tension, and the storm outside seemed to mirror the chaos within the asylum's walls. Dr. Thorne, along with all of his patients and the remaining staff, vanished without a trace. It was as if the storm had swallowed them whole, leaving behind only questions and a haunting silence. The only sign that they had ever existed was the chilling silence that descended upon Cranbrook. The once bustling corridors were now eerily quiet, and the oppressive atmosphere seemed to weigh heavily on anyone who dared to enter. The asylum's doors were found wide open, the patients' beds were empty, and their belongings were left untouched. It was as if time had stopped and the inhabitants had simply vanished into thin air. It was as if they had simply ceased to be. The authorities were baffled. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no clues were found to explain the sudden disappearance. There was no sign of a struggle, no forced entry, no indication of where they could have gone. The rooms were left in perfect order, as if the inhabitants had simply walked away without a trace. The investigation yielded no answers, and the case of the missing patients and staff of Cranbrook Mental Hospital went down in history as one of the most perplexing disappearances of all time. Theories ranged from mass abduction to supernatural intervention, but none could be proven. The asylum was left abandoned, a chilling monument to the horrors that had transpired within its walls. Over the years, it became a place of legend, with stories of ghostly apparitions and unexplained phenomena adding to its eerie reputation. Cranbrook Mental Hospital remains a haunting reminder of the dark chapters in medical history, where the line between science and cruelty was tragically blurred.
All right, team, this is it. Cranbrook Mental Hospital. Let's see what we can uncover. Remember, this place has a reputation for a reason. We need to stay sharp and stick together.
I still can't believe we're doing this. The stories alone are enough to give me chills. People say they've seen shadows moving in the windows, heard screams echoing through the halls. It's like the place is alive with its own dark energy.
Just remember, we're here to document, not to become part of the legend. We need to capture everything on camera, every sound, every movement. This is our chance to uncover the truth, but we have to be careful.
The history of this place is fascinating. I just hope we don't regret coming here. From what I've read, the asylum was shut down in the 1960s after a series of mysterious deaths. Some say the patients were mistreated. Others believe something more sinister was at play.
Decades later, the legend of Cranbrook Mental Hospital drew in a group of urban explorers. Led by the intrepid Jake, a seasoned paranormal investigator with a thirst for the unknown, the group consisted of Emily, the team's tech expert and skeptic, Ben, the muscle and voice of reason, and Sarah, a history buff with a keen interest in the paranormal. They were drawn to Cranbrook's eerie allure, compelled to uncover the truth behind its dark past. Armed with cameras, EMF readers, and a healthy dose of apprehension, the group stepped through the overgrown weeds and into the asylum's shadow. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of the unknown. A cold, unseen hand seemed to grip their hearts, a harbinger of the darkness that awaited them. As they entered the asylum's main hall, dust motes danced in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced through the boarded-up windows. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and the unsettling silence was broken only by the sound of their own footsteps. Jake, his eyes scanning the room, could sense the weight of the asylum's history pressing down on them. This was not just a building. It was a vault of forgotten horrors, and they were about to pry it open. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, the very fabric of the place woven with the cries of those who had suffered within. Each step they took echoed with the memories of the past, a past that refused to be forgotten. The team knew they were not alone. The spirits of Cranbrook were watching, waiting. They had come seeking the unknown, but what they would find was beyond their wildest fears. The journey into the heart of darkness had just begun, and there was no turning back.